I'll keep it brief. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Today, we're going to be diving into the advanced threat protection capabilities of Defender for Endpoint. This is our second episode in a 7-part series where we'll be going through all of the Microsoft security tools, as well as touching on some of those compliance tools that I know anyone concerned about data governance is interested in. My name is Tony Coughlin. I'm one of the co-founders of Levacloud. I'm not going to do much talking today, but I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A for questions, and I'll try to get those answered during the call. I'll turn it over to Gareth and Florin to introduce themselves. Just like to say in the beginning, we are going to record the presentation, so I'll be following up via email with the slide deck and a link to the recording after the webinar series or this episode is completed. So with that, Gareth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So as Tony mentioned, or I think he did, I'm the chief architect over here at Levacloud. I live and breathe Microsoft every day, I guess, always drinking from the fire hose. So whether it's Intune, Defender, or Purview, we've got you covered there. And yeah, today, like I say, we're going to take you through Defender for Endpoint, give you a little peek under the hood at some of the features that you might not realize are in there. And we're also going to talk about, some case studies where we've seen it actually help nonprofits in the real world sort of thing as well. Florin, would you like to go next there?
Yes, thank you, Gareth. So my name is Florin. I'm based in Romania. I'm a security product manager in Microsoft. I'm part of the SMC CXC team, and together, today we will have a great journey in Defender for Endpoint. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Florin. Spent time in Bucharest in a previous life, actually. Great city. All right, so let's jump in here. So I like to kind of start off with a sort of ground and anchor for our conversation. And, one of the biggest threats that I see from an endpoint perspective across our nonprofit customers generally is ransomware. And this is something where year over year, the threat of ransomware continues to grow, especially human operated ransomware attacks. We're kind of in a world now where it's not just the threat actors sending out some malware in an email and then hoping that somebody clicks it on the other side. This is a business model, and I say that with air quotes because you can go on the dark web and you can actually hire threat actor groups to perform ransomware as a service attacks for you these days, and it's quite inexpensive as well. So this is a business model where it's profitable enough because people unfortunately do pay the ransoms to where they're putting real human threat actors into environments to gain a foothold and actually perform a ransomware attack. And you can see these statistics here. They're just growing year over year. And we need to take a proactive approach, a zero trust approach, honestly, to defend ourselves against these types of attacks. And also leverage, advanced endpoint protection capabilities that Defender for Endpoint is able to provide us so that we can, protect our nonprofits from this scourge, honestly. Now, I talk a little bit about zero trust, and some of you might have been on our previous webinar, so I'll keep it brief. But I always like to just level set with, what is zero trust and how do Microsoft and Levacloud bring a total solution for that. So zero trust, real quick background, for the last 20 plus years, we've been following what's called the perimeter security model. And essentially in that model, we wrapped a firewall around everything that we deemed to be important. And we just kind of assumed that anything inside of there in that sort of protected space, if you will, was secure and good and friendly. We'd have some reactive security tools in there that would respond to events kind of after they'd happened. That was kind of the whole concept of it. But as we started to work in different ways, collaborate in different ways, use different cloud applications, store data and identities in different places, that model kind of degraded, honestly, because we lost visibility into the things that were going beyond our network perimeter and out into all these different cloud applications and devices. So that's where Zero Trust came along as a concept, the industry recognized that change was needed. It is a standard, so different vendors have their own flavor of it. What we're looking at here is Microsoft's flavor of Zero Trust. It all pivots around the identity. So we have 6 pillars in Zero Trust, identities and endpoints being the foundation. On our last webinar, we focused all on identity and talked about how that was the new control plane for security instead of it being the network perimeter. And today we're going to be focusing in on the endpoints pillar essentially here by primarily talking about Defender for Endpoint. Now, Microsoft Intune is another capability that falls into that endpoints pillar. Some of you may have heard of it. It's included in a lot of different flavors of Microsoft licensing, and it's a great way to manage and deploy Defender for Endpoint, and also apply security policies from it and that kind of thing. Now, a lot of people look at all the capabilities on here and they say, wow, that's a lot. Like, where do we even start? So the quick version of that is you start by securing the foundation first. I've seen so many organizations that have tried to just buy a bunch of different security capabilities and layer them in and then wonder why they're still combating, identity-based attacks and malware on endpoints. Even though they're paying for all these advanced security things that you might see on the right-hand side here. Well, the answer generally is because they haven't got all the foundational proactive security controls in place that come with these foundational pillars, because Zero Trust is all about being proactive so that we can kind of try and stop things from happening in the first place. And we sort of approach it from a mindset that we might have already been breached. And all of these Microsoft security tools you see are built off of that concept. Now, in addition to getting your foundation secured, you need the visibility into it. You can't just kind of put these things on autopilot. Someone needs to be accountable for managing the tools for you, whether it's an in-house person or people, or I know a lot of nonprofits have to juggle a lot of balls to keep the lights on. Maybe you work with a partner to get that 24/7 visibility in place. And then, once you've got that foundation and that initial visibility in place, that's where you can start building out the roadmap and following the runbooks to get all these extended capabilities in place. Because Microsoft Zero Trust is a journey, it's not something that you can just turn on overnight. And that's something that we, through our own expert support services, work with nonprofit customers to get in place and go on that journey with them and help them develop that roadmap. Now, with that said, I started out by talking about ransomware and how Defender for Endpoint is a key capability in helping defend against that. So I just want to share a little kind of case study with you, if you will. Now, we ran into a situation in the last year where we'd started working with a nonprofit client, and we were helping them get their environment dialed in, helping them adopt the Defender tools. And we made some discoveries, and we actually ended up kind of saving them from becoming a ransomware victim. So to take a step back, basically we were working with this customer, doing almost like a threat check assessment using the Defender tools that Microsoft was funding at the time. And we identified that a threat actor had compromised a user's account. They had got their way to a sensitive accounting server, and they had actually began to launch pre-ransomware activity. Now, if it hadn't been for the fact that, right place at the right time, we were turning on these Defender for Endpoint capabilities, it probably would have gone unnoticed until it was too late. Defender is very sensitive, and it does pick up on a lot of things that competing products do not. I've seen that happen on several occasions, and I'm sure this would have been kind of the same again there. And this was amazing because we didn't even have Defender like fully deployed with all of its advanced capabilities yet. We basically had it out there. The lights were on and some of the protections were enabled. And, it was already in a position where it was blocking the attempts for the ransomware threat actors tools to talk back to the command and control servers. A capability called automated investigation and response, AIR, which we're going to talk a little bit about later, and you might even get to see, it had immediately started, jumping on these different processes that were being launched on the system, stopping them from running. And at that point, the customer had called us up and said, "Hey, like, this is happening, please help." So we jumped on with them, and it accelerated the deployment to this group of systems that were impacted by this threat actor, turning on some things called attack surface reduction rules that we'll go into a little bit more later. And actually that just stopped the threat actor in their tracks. It, stopped them from being able to move laterally. And, in that case, we put out the smoke and then went on to figure out how it even got to that stage in the first place. And, going back to proactive controls and getting some of that foundational stuff in place, definitely was something we were able to show the customer in that situation and work with them to move towards. So yeah, very powerful set of tools, and just a real world example that I wanted to share with you of how we've seen them actually help other non-profit customers, because you are definitely very targeted. Now, with that said, let's kind of start to get under the hood and understand what Defender for Endpoint actually is, because it's not just that free antivirus that came with Windows Vista back in 2007. I have had that question come up in the past, believe it or not. Defender for Endpoint is very much a market-leading solution at this point. Microsoft has definitely been good on the $20 billion commitment they made to enhance their security tools a few years ago. And you can see some of that here. Defender for Endpoint is made up of several modules, if you like, and we're going to kind of dig in and explore some of them here just now. So first off, one thing that people don't always realize is that Defender for Endpoint is a multi-platform solution. It's not just for Windows PCs. It'll work across Linux, Mac OS, server platforms. It'll also work across virtual desktops, mobile platforms too. It's actually becoming quite popular for mobile because it's got the ability to scan all of the links that a user might tap inside of a text message, which can be, phishing type links, SMS phishing, or even like QR codes. There was a whole spate of malicious QR codes out there for a while. It'll detect and block those too. So we've had a lot of customers wanting to adopt that. And then network devices. So it actually has the ability to scan your enterprise networking stack and inform you of vulnerabilities across it. We turned this on for one customer, and we were able to show them that not only did their Cisco switchgear have vulnerable versions of Cisco iOS on it, but we also found some issues with the security of the SNMP, which is the authentication that the switchgear uses for monitoring and certain levels of management. There's some issues there, and yeah, they didn't know until Defender showed them. You don't know what you don't know, as I usually say. Now, speaking of vulnerabilities, let's talk about Defender Vulnerability Management. This is a really, really powerful capability that just comes bundled as part of the Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, which comes in the E5 licensing. And it's great. It's not just for looking to see if you're using Windows patches. It actually goes way deeper than that. It will look from the firmware level all the way up. So this is going to tell you if you've got any, BIOS level issues. We've seen vendors having to release new firmware in the past for things like Spectre and Meltdown that it sort of suggests there. Even more recently, there was some issues with Apple Silicon that this would have picked up on as well on the Mac OS, because we're talking multiple platforms here, works across them all. And then, yeah, of course, Windows patches are going to be part of this, but your third-party applications too. It's going to tell you if they're vulnerable and if they're needing patched, all the way up to the top of the application layer. And this is running in real time and will continually let you know about any issues that it finds. And the really cool thing is that when you go into this tool and look at the recommendations that it's making, it actually prioritizes them for you, and it does it based off of what it knows about your environment. It's taken in a lot of different signals because you adopted these tools and turned them on in multiple areas. So it's going to give you a hit list of things to tackle in the most impactful order. Whereas some competing tools might just give you a big list of stuff, and you look at it and you say, man, where do I even begin with these 7,000 vulnerabilities? So very, very powerful, very helpful. One new feature they've recently added too, if you've got the Defender Vulnerability Management add-on as well as Defender for Endpoint, so it extends the capabilities that I've just told you about with some extra stuff. They've now added a capability where you can actually block vulnerable applications while they're waiting to be patched. So you can go through this process of requesting that it be remediated, which actually sends it through to a security tasks dashboard inside of Intune as an item for someone to pick up and work. And we'll see a little bit more about that later here. But you can also block the application from opening if the vulnerability is severe enough until it's been patched up to date. Really, really cool. Now, attack surface reduction is probably one of my favorite Defender features, to be honest, because it's so impactful. So attack surface reduction rules are what I like to call an extension to the core protections of Defender for Endpoint. This is where it really digs itself deeply into the Windows operating system, Windows client and server. And it has things in here such as stop Adobe from creating child processes, stop credential stealing from the local security subsystem, for example. All of these different things that basically stop the threat actors from moving laterally and stop the ransomware from encrypting. There's a feature in there called controlled folder access, which restricts the ability for processes to modify core system folders. And this stuff, when you turn it on, it does take some tuning. It's a little bit complex, so I do see some people try and skip it, but it is 100% worth just spending the time going through, building up the exception list of the apps that are your legitimate ones that are line of business that you're using. Because I've seen several occasions where customers had a pen test done, and if the attack surface reduction rules had been turned on, they would have basically stopped the pen testers from being able to do whatever they were trying to do. And then with that ransomware use case I showed you guys in the beginning, us turning that on just short-circuited the whole thing, as we, of course, at the same time flushed out the compromised account and reset the password and the MFA tokens and all that stuff. Highly, highly, highly recommended. If you're going to do anything on here with Defender, make it this. Now, network protection, another really powerful tool in Defender. So, Microsoft's got their own threat intelligence that's fed into these tools. And essentially, this protection will block any process on the device from reaching out to known bad or malicious domains. So, if you've got something that's going to reach out to a command and control server, this is going to block it from happening. Additionally, let's say you're subscribed to an ISAC or something like that, where you're getting threat intelligence from those guys. You can add IP addresses and domain names to this tool yourself for it to, block custom stuff as well as the things that Microsoft wants it to block. Very powerful tool. Now, kind of secondary to that or alongside it, there's web content filtering in here as well. So, when we work with a lot of our non-profit customers, they're always looking for ways to consolidate and save on cost. In some cases, they might be paying for third-party capabilities that are doing web content filtering. This is included in Defender. It's category-based. It works well. And when you pair it with some of the other capabilities inside of the E5 licensing, like Defender for Cloud Apps, for example, where you can tag applications as unsanctioned to block them across all of your devices, regardless of what network they're on. It provides a really complete solution, like when you pair that with category-based filtering and maybe even a little bit of network protection as well. So great, robust suite of tools, can definitely save some money. Now, the next generation protection part of Defender, this is a little bit more behind the scenes. But essentially, this is the behavioral side of Defender. It looks at processes, it creates a baseline to decide what's normal, and if it sees any process, trusted or otherwise, behaving in a way that it shouldn't be, then it will take action against it. Same with any files that you try to run, right? If it looks like a file is behaving in a strange way that's not normal, or it looks like it's been tampered with, it's going to make a decision on it and then block it from being launched if we've given it the ability to do that. Because there's a sliding scale, on how much action you can have Defender take. For nonprofits, I think turning it all the way up is the best approach to take. Honestly, we've had good success in that. And like I say, it doesn't matter if the apps are trusted by you or not. Defender is going to provide the protection there. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, that's a lot of processing on the endpoint. And you would be right if it was all done on the endpoint. So here's the really cool thing. Defender leans on all of the big data processing inside of the Microsoft Security Cloud to make some of these decisions. So for example, with the file blocking capability, it'll spend, so many seconds trying to make a decision on whether it trusts a file or not at the endpoint level. And if it can't decide, it'll actually send it up into the cloud. It'll take a sample of it, it'll sandbox it, it'll detonate it. And if it's found to be malicious, then it'll block it. So not just all number crunching locally, we've got the whole security backend in the cloud that's helping us out as well. Now, I always like to throw this slide in here when I'm talking about this section because, we're talking about ransomware. It's definitely one of the bigger threats that's out there from a endpoint perspective. Sure, it touches on a few different domains, but when it comes down to ransomware, endpoint protection plays a big part in defending against it. And tamper protection is a feature in Defender that basically stops anyone from turning it off or changing settings. One of the big things that we see is when a threat actor gets in, they try and disable the endpoint protection so that they can do whatever they need to do, right? And if you enable tamper protection, they won't be able to do that. I've seen it turned off in some environments, so I always just kind of raise that as a thing to look out for when you're turning on these tools and working with them. Now, endpoint detection and response, or EDR, is probably a buzzword that you've heard about. And essentially, in Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, this is all the really nice capability that looks through the different alerts coming off the endpoint and kind of correlates them into your incident dashboard so that you can just see the things that are relevant to the security threat that you're trying to investigate. It'll store 6 months inside of Defender. And if you need to retain it for longer than that, that's where Microsoft Sentinel comes into play, which is Microsoft's cloud native SIEM product. And essentially, through EDR, there's a really, really cool kind of investigation experience that you can kind of see here. It breaks it down across different sections when you click into an incident. You can even go down to the level of and this is the true EDR part, seeing the timeline of a workstation and what processes kicked off, which ones were potentially malicious, what Defender did with them, to really kind of drill down and understand what happened during a security threat that was detected so that you can get to the root cause of it and, make sure that it's been completely flushed out. And I mentioned the incidents. They're there to, tell the entire story. And also, you do get situations where a threat might span across multiple areas. If that happens, which it can do, then Defender, through its XDR capabilities, extended detection and response, will grab all those different alerts from, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Cloud Apps, Defender for Office 365, and present them to you under one incident so that you can just look at one place and know, okay, this security threat was from all of these different areas, and you're not left spinning around on your chair because you're trying to, look at different security products that aren't connected and understand what's related to what. So moving forward here, I'm going to talk a little bit about auto investigation and remediation, also known as AIR. So this is the really sweet automation features that are inside of Defender. There's definitely some machine learning and AI going on in here. And basically, when it comes to this stuff, it's not just immediately trying to block a device. This is something where It's trying to make a decision on the different things that it's found based on playbooks that an actual human SOC person would follow. So think of this as your little automated virtual tier 1 SOC person that's triaging things as soon as they come in 24/7, to give your team extra pair of hands right on the front end. And it's really cool because you can go in and actually see these kind of graphs that show you exactly what happened. You're not having to trawl through alerts and logs and stuff that's difficult to read to just get a one glance view to understand exactly how an automated response took place. Now, going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are behind Defender and integrated with Defender. The Microsoft Cloud ecosystem is very deeply integrated across all these Defender tools, across Microsoft Purview, which is the compliance platform, and Microsoft Intune as well, which is the device management platform. And the really cool thing that they've done with Intune is set it up so that it can be the center of your universe for everything device management across all of your platforms, essentially. And when we think about historical way teams were structured, there was always this kind of silo that security sat in, and then this separate silo that the IT team or the endpoint management folks would sit in, and they never really talked to each other, and it was difficult to kind of get them to collaborate. And the way that Microsoft's built Defender and Intune, they're trying to kind of knock that silo down, because essentially we're now in a place where, like I say, anything to do with Defender can be managed inside of Intune, and that's across all the platforms, servers included now, for your endpoint security management specifically. And with the integration I talked about for the vulnerability management, where if someone on the security team sees a problem and they need to remediate, an out-of-date application, they can send it across to the security tasks dashboard in Intune, and it has clear context and information about, what needs to be done and why. It just kind of helps break down that sort of silo and get folks talking to each other. Because I've seen some of those frictions in previous organizations where maybe the IT team and the security team had their own agendas that they didn't really align with the overall kind of mission of securing the organization. And this kind of stuff just makes it easier because they can collaborate and work together at a sort of meaningful level in here. And the ability to go to Intune and centrally manage Defender settings across everything without having to use group policy or anything like that, absolute game changer. Even for the servers, so some of you might know, Windows Server cannot be directly onboarded into Intune. So this security settings management basically pushes any policies you create for Defender backwards through the Defender for Endpoint sensor and onto the server itself. And we use it in all of our deployments now. The only place that's not supported is in the government cloud. So I'm hoping it comes there soon for any of you that have to use that. But for regular Microsoft Cloud, you're good to go with this, and highly recommend it as a best practice. Talk through a lot of different capabilities there. Little look under the covers of how Defender for Endpoint works. So maybe now what we can do is get Florin to take control of the screen share.
Security.microsoft.com. This is the main portal, the single pane of glass, okay, where we can manage our security products, Microsoft security products with Defender for Office, email, and collaboration. We have Defender for Cloud App Security with Cloud Apps. We have identities, Defender for Identity, and also we have the start of the day, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Now, the question comes, how do I start? What do I need to do? Pretty simple. It is pretty straightforward. We have the system with the global settings where we are managing the settings for the entire tenant, and we have a dedicated menu. We have the menu for the endpoints with a sub-menu as well that will allow us to start the onboarding. We can onboard multiple operating systems. We have Windows 7, 10, 11. We have Windows servers, macOS, Linux, iOS, Android, and subsystem for Linux. Okay, so multiple operating systems are covered. Now, the deployment method, it is as well pretty straightforward. We will go as a standard with connectivity type because we have multiple deployment methods covering as well multiple scenarios. We can onboard using a local script up to 10 devices. We can work with the GPOs. We can work with configuration manager. We can work as well, and this is the most common used, Microsoft Intune. Okay, we will allow Intune to onboard our devices in Defender for Endpoint, and as well, with the help of Intune, we can easily enforce security policies in Defender for Endpoint. Now, once, let's say we have selected Intune, we will need to download the onboarding package, and that's it. Launch the onboarding package into the devices, and we have our devices onboarded in Defender for Endpoint, and they can be easily found under Assets, Devices, right? So we have device inventory with the main page, all devices, but in order to segregate and to scope and to easy work, let's say we can use computers and mobiles. Maybe if we are having network devices, we can see what are the network devices because we can manage as well network devices, IoT, OT devices as well. This is the next big thing, and they are also covered by Defender for Endpoint. When it comes to uncategorized devices, here we have multiple type of devices that cannot be categorized by Defender for Endpoint, but as well they can be managed. We are working to have the same parity as on Windows endpoint, right? To have the same set of actions to be applied to uncategorized devices. Now, we can see all devices. In this demo tenant, I have Windows 10 devices, I have Windows 11 devices, and I will scroll on the right side, and you will be able to see that onboarding status. All my devices are onboarded in Defender for Endpoint, and they are managed by Intune. Okay, now, once the device is onboarded, it's going to start to collect the data, right? The sensor will work in the background, collecting the data, and this will offer us, as we can see here in the risk level column, what is the risk level assigned to my device and what is the exposure level. Those details are coming and they are collected as well under threat and vulnerability management because we will receive recommendations as well how to improve and how to increase the security posture of our organization, and of course to have our device better protected. I will open this device, Windows 11B in this case. The classic device page, right? This is the main page. This is the expected view, right? So here you have all the details regarding this device. You will have the operating system information. So you will see if it is part of an asset group. We can see what is the health of the sensor, the IP address, when it was seen, right? The onboarding status, when it was last seen by Defender for Endpoint sensors, and of course, device ID, the advanced classification, and so on. On the right side, in the middle of the page, we have the risk level, which is medium in this case. We have active alerts and active incidents that are impacting this device, and that's why the risk level, it is medium. And also we have the exposure level and logon users. So we can see all the users that use this device, that connected to this device. And of course, with Defender for Identity in place, for example, we can see if we have another user that is involved, let's say, in a lateral movement path. So one user connected to this device and try to access some other devices and so on. Device details regarding the scan. We can see if we have performed a full scan, a quick scan, if we have as well the security intelligence updated, if we have the last engine that is available on the Microsoft side updated, as well what is the platform and what is the AV mode, which is active, means that Defender antivirus, it is the main source of protection for my device. Now, we have incidents and alerts. We can see all the incidents and alerts, right, that are correlated, let's say, with my device. In this case, I have 2 incidents. I will move forward with the other options into the device page because we will analyze the incident a bit later, and also we will see how an automated investigation works. So basically, we will see how our AI, our automations was capable in stopping some malwares. On the timeline, we can see exactly everything that happened on this device. Okay, if we have processes that got stopped, deleted, any other processes that got, let's say, created, if we have any modifications in the HTML keys and so on. You can see some dots, right? What are the dots? Incidents and alerts. So we have highlighted in here when an incident occurred. Of course, if we will click on this little orange dot, we will have details regarding this incident that was triggered on my Windows 11B machine. And also I have the entire timeline in a chronological order, so I can see exactly how it started, what actions were taken, if something was modified, and so on. But before having all these detections, before having all this protection in place, I will need to create security policies, right? And like we have seen in the presentation, we can create security policies using Intune, okay? And also we can create security policies straight from security portal. So we don't need to use another platform, right, to create a security policy and to have it applied on my device. I can create and I can see on a device level as well what are the policies applied for my device. In this case, I have an AV policy, I have an attack surface reduction policy, and an EDR. Just for demo purposes, I will open the attack surface reduction policy to see exactly what I really want to see. I want to see every rule in success, right? So all the policy settings are successfully applied to my device. I don't have any errors, I don't have any conflicts, and also I can see what settings are applied, what I have in block mode, what I have in audit mode, what I have in warn mode as well. And on the policy setting status, pretty simple, right? Device in success. So this ASR policy, it is applied successfully to my devices. Now, going back on the device page, I have security recommendations that are available, that are visible in here only at device level, because under threat and vulnerability management, right, we have a global security recommendations that are applied tenant level. But in this case, I can see them only on this device. And the first recommendation, update Google Chrome, update Net Framework, update Microsoft Office, and so on. Once I will start updating Google Chrome, I will be able, right, to increase the secure score of my organization. So the risk level of this machine will decrease as well, and I will not have this recommendation in place. Now, pretty simple to be handled, to be managed. Most of those security recommendations can be resolved, let's say, by using compliance policies, saying, hey, I want my devices to have all the time the latest version of Microsoft Office, right? And once an update is going to be available, they will be launched on the device, and of course, I will not be receiving these security recommendations. I have the inventories. I can see the software inventories on my device. Okay, so please remember that what we are seeing here is only on the device level, and when we quickly jump into the threat and vulnerability management global page, we will see the full recommendations tenant-wide. So I can see what softwares do I have, what are the weaknesses, what is the installed version, what is the vendor, and so on. Vulnerable components as well are available in here, visible, and we can address them. Discovered vulnerabilities, another pretty cool thing. So we have all the weaknesses that are impacting this device, and most of them, again, will be can be solved, can be managed by using compliance policies, by having the latest version of the impacted software. Missing KBs from the operating system. If I have missed, for example, an update, I will see in here. So I will be able to notify my end user if I don't have a compliance policy in place. Mr. User, please restart your computer, because we all tend to let the computer up and running for a long period of time. So that's why we are missing some updates. Advanced features are coming under and threat vulnerability management add-on. Basically, this will give us more power over application control with the capabilities of blocking applications on the endpoint level, security baselines to create and manage a baseline profile, to monitor the posture of my device, browser extensions. I can see if I have on my environment any browser extensions that can put at risk my end users by stealing data, like we have seen in some cases with some extensions that are stealing the data that we are trying to translate or make it more beautiful by sending up an email. And also if we have certificate inventory, it is visible in here. This is most useful, let's say, on the Windows Server endpoint. Basically, those are the options. This is the visibility that we are having on the endpoint. Now, we can take some actions. We have some plan to features. We have device value. I can set this device Windows 11B as being a VIP user. So I can increase the value of this device. And when I will launch an investigation, if I have this device impacted in one incident, it's going to be much more easier for me to take the proper action. Set criticality as well. I can say, hey, this is an internet-facing device. This is a server with a sensitive application. I want to have it very high, for example. Again, it's going to help and it's going to be useful during an investigation. 3 dots, manage tags. We can assign tags to my devices. This is really helpful by automatically adding some devices based on the tags on some device groups. So basically, let's say we can work with some dynamic groups. That's going to be much more easier to assign policies and so on. Report device inaccuracy. I will be able to reset all the information that I see here, right? Let's say that the metadata that is collected is not good enough. Basically, I can reset the device information device and the new data will start to come. Run antivirus scan. Remotely, I can launch a quick or a full scan for this device. Collect investigation package is going to help me to collect some other type of data, right, that I can export and have a more advanced troubleshooting, maybe some reverse engineering for some malwares and so on. Restrict app executions is going to allow me to block any third-party applications on this device that are not signed by Microsoft. For example, Google Chrome or some other applications that are not approved by the organization. Initiate automated investigation, plan to feature, plan to capability. We will be able to benefit from the power of the automation and launch a full automation for this device and take the proper actions if we will have a malware or multiple malwares detected. Initiate live response. We will be able to take control of this device remotely. Okay, I will have a shell window where I can upload, for example, a PowerShell script, and I can take the proper actions remotely on that device. Let's say this device is impacted by a bad malware. Okay, I have disconnected this device from the organization network. I have still internet connection on this one, and I will upload a PowerShell command that is going to allow me to collect some data, to run an AV scan remotely, and so on. So I can take the proper actions remotely without having any impact on the end user. Isolate device is going to cut the communication with some other devices in my organization. Basically, it's going to remove the internet connection. Defender experts, another pretty powerful feature. After the deployment, you'll need to know that you're not alone. Okay, we have Defender experts that are here to assist you with incidents, with questions if you have. This is a licensed based feature. Action Center, we can see exactly what are the actions that we have performed on this device. We have a global action center for the entire tenant. Let's say that after live response session and isolate the device, I'm not able to reinstate my device to initial state, right? I can download an isolation script, upload it using live response, and I will be able to reestablish the connection of this device to my corporate network. Also, I can exclude this device from the list. Let's say that we have a scenario where this device is not anymore in use, no one can access it, and so on. And as you can see, we have a risk level that might be high. We have exposure level as well that it's high, right? No updates, no nothing. That's why it's going to impact the secure score. I'm going to exclude this one from the list, and this is not going to impact my organization security posture. Advanced hunting as well, a plan to feature. We can be proactive and we can go hunt for threats. We can use the advanced query language, and we will be able to get and gather more information, right, in a more, let's say, advanced way. We can turn on troubleshooting mode. That's going to troubleshoot basically this device. Those are only a few set of capabilities that we are having on the device level. Okay, so all the actions that we have seen so far will be applied on the device level. Going on the incidents and alerts, I will be able to see what are the incidents and the alerts where this device is involved. I have a multi-stage incident involving credential access. Basically, it is involved in a lateral movement. And as you can see, I have multiple alerts. So we can correlate multiple alerts under one single incident. We have a machine learning behind that will correlate everything based on the strong signals, okay? All the alerts under one single incident. Imagine how much noise we will have by having one alert, one incident, second alert, second incident, third alert, and so on. We will have a lot of incidents open, but with this correlation in place, we will correlate everything together under one single incident. And this is how an incident is looking. Pretty beautiful. We have the alerts on the left side. On the left side, we have all the alerts that we have seen, right? 52 alerts in a chronological order, right? So these are the alerts. So this is the story that we are seeing in here. Going on the alerts menu, right? We can see all the alerts that are involved. The assets that are involved, I have 3 devices and 2 users in this case. I will skip investigations and I will go with evidence and responses. Here I can see all the files that have been scanned, all the processes that have been involved, right? And I have the summary of this incident. 13 alerts, 2 tactics, multiple devices, multiple users, and what is the status of this incident. The magic investigations, automated investigations. We will open this one. The first one, because this is the first on the list. Everything, automations are, basically the same. Everything starts with the investigation graph where we have the alert received, right? Plus 1 correlated alert. So this investigation as well correlated another alert under the same investigation. So we can say that we have solved 2 alerts with 1 single investigation that is impacting Windows 10A in this case. Down below, we can see all entities that are analyzed. I have 751 files, 3 of them remediated. Basically, we had, let's say, 3 malwares. Processes that got scanned, services, drivers, IP addresses, and we have discovered some persistent methods. And here we have the evidences. 3 files under evidences, and what I want to see, the result remediated. So basically it was automatically remediated. I did not touch anything, right? The automation did the job, and this malware got stopped, got prevented. And of course, I can see I have multiple details as well on the investigation level. I can see all the alerts. We have seen that this investigation was triggered by 1 alert plus another one that got correlated, resolved, 1 device, okay, Windows 10. What are the evidences? Of course, files, remediation status prevented, so they did not run. Nothing was changed, nothing impacted my my endpoint, and of course the entities with all the files that got investigated during this this investigation. I have processes, services, drivers, IP addresses, and so on, and of course the logs. I can see the logs as well the entities. So I have the entire view. I have the big picture of this investigation and how it got solved automatically without any click on my side. A really powerful tool that is going to help us a lot. It's coming like an extra hand of help. It's our little robot friend working 24/7, and in just 6 minutes, this malware got prevented. Now, we have seen during the presentation that the defender was capable in discovering some weaknesses, and the ransomware got stopped before encrypting any files, right? And for this, we have the vulnerability management. So basically, here we can see what are the top security recommendations on the tenant level. I have Windows that needs to be updated. I have Google Chrome, and I have the exposure score with the end goal, okay, to keep it as low as possible. So it's the other way around. When it comes to exposure score, keep it as low as possible. I have the secure score for the device on the application level, operating system, network, and the accounts. Recommendations on the device level, Windows 10B, we have seen all the recommendations for that specific device, but now we are seeing at tenant level, right? So we have collected the entire data on a tenant level for all the devices that are onboarded, and we have started to propose recommendations, security recommendations. And let's take, for example, update Microsoft Office, right? I have the general description. I can see the exposed devices. I can see where it is installed and what are the associated weaknesses. I can request a remediation, and the other team that is handling, the patching, for example, will receive a notification saying, hey, Mr. Admin, please update Microsoft Office as soon as possible. Google Chrome as well, Windows as well, we have the general description, and that is really, really helpful. Now we can request, right, software update, select date by, let's say by Monday, I want to have my Windows update opened on these 3 devices, priority medium, and I will say, please update as soon as possible. Next, submit, and now I have requested a remediation for my colleagues that are handling, the patching. On the inventories as well, we can see all the softwares at tenant level with the weaknesses that are associated as well, like Windows 11. Software details, we are getting the details at the software level, and we can see as well where it is installed, same for Chrome, Office, and so on. On the weaknesses, I can see as well all the weaknesses. However, I have a filter, affects my organization. So those are all the weaknesses that are affecting my organization. Most of them are related to updates, application update, operating system updates, and so on. Those can be quickly solved, again, by having compliance policies in place that will automatically update the softwares. And of course, we can see all the details. And that's it. I know that is just on time. I have tried to cover as much as I can, but I hope it was useful.
Yeah, that's great, Florin. Thanks for sharing that. And let me just pop up the slides of the last couple of minutes here just to wrap things up. Yeah, that was a great little demo looking through all those capabilities there. So please start to put any questions you might have in the chat. Real quick, we'll send out these slides afterwards, but there is a little matrix in here that just shows you what capabilities you get at each licensing level. So for example, P1 is what comes with the E3 license. P2 is what comes with the E5. And then vulnerability management is kind of like a separate add-on or standalone license that you can purchase. And just a quick reminder for everyone, we've got a few more episodes in our series where we're tackling different topics in each one. The next one's going to be on Defender for Office 365. Highly recommend signing up. We've got lots more fun to come and more demos from folks at Microsoft as well as part of it in this series. And I guess, yeah, we'll just take the last few minutes here for any questions that anyone might have.